One of my favorite things is a good scary story on a dark night with a candle for the only light in the room. These are a couple of true stories my friends told me, and I'd like to share them with you. This story belongs to Melissa Bishop. I remember the first time I read this story, I got the chills. I've known since the summer before I turned 5 there was something different about me. I could see and hear people and animals that others couldn't. It would take till I was 8 before my parents believed me. Here's one of my many stories. In 2005, my now ex-husband and I moved with my 9-year-old daughter to a small town in East Texas. A coach at the local high school was our landlord and had a huge duplex we could move into immediately. The neighborhood was full of old Victorian homes, beautiful but old and a kind of a creepy vibe. He said that not many people stayed more than a few weeks in his duplex, and he didn't tell us anything else. He did say he would come by on the weekends to do yard work and landscape the property twice a month. We were there about 3 days, and I noticed the older dusty tan 1990 Toyota Corolla in the next driveway had never moved. We could hear slight noises in the adjacent duplex. Our living room, kitchen, and laundry room walls joined the next door. Nothing ever loud except late at night, me and my daughter would hear soft crying from a woman. My then husband worked 2 jobs and was never home except to sleep early mornings for a few hours, and back out he went. He never heard anything. We did what we do and minded our own business. Over the next week at night, we would hear strange scratching noises and almost clawing at the walls in the bedrooms. At first I thought it was mice. It wasn't long before my daughter and I had to sleep in the living room. The noises got loud and scary for us both. I had a small caliber weapon with me. We had several break-ins in the past. The second week we were there, the cops were called 4 times, never finding anything, except the laundry room exterior door and window had opened and small fingerprints were in the dust on the inside of the window in the laundry room. They explained them as being my daughter's fingerprints because there was no forced entry and no other evidence. I took pictures of my daughter's hands next to them, and these were larger than hers, so I began to feel very creeped out. A month went by, same noises every night. We'd smell Mexican food coming from the next door, and we loved the smell. I stopped calling the police and just accepted that something was off. I couldn't see or sense anything other than a creepy vibe. I did fear for our safety, but was ready if anything else happened. My daughter began asking to stay with her grandmother. I allowed it several days a week, so I would be alone and do my best to clean the house and get it settled for her to feel more home-like. Then one day I went to take the trash out, and a very old Hispanic lady was standing in the glass screen door of the next door unit. I smiled and waved, and she just stared at me. I asked her if she was okay, and she just nodded and closed the door. A few more weeks went by, noises, food smells, seeing her in the doorway, and never speaking to me, only nodding. I once tried to tell her my name and introduce my daughter, and she smiled and stared at my little girl and just stepped back inside. We would never see any lights on except the porch light on both of our units, which was set on a timer. No one ever came to see her. It made me feel so sad. My daughter would come and tell me many times that the little old lady would watch her play in our yard from inside the window and door. My daughter woke up early one Saturday morning and told me that we need to make the old lady next door a cake. So we did. Knowing the old lady must have been in her late 80s and never having anyone to come see her, how could she not like a cake and a visit? My daughter and I knocked on the door several times, and she didn't answer. Her car was still in the drive. We waited an hour and went back. As we were standing by the door knocking, the landlord drove up. He had a strange look on his face and asked what we were doing. We told him how we'd seen the old lady and that she had never spoke to us, and she seemed lonely and sad. We also told him that we heard her cry at night. We told him we'd baked a cake for her and would try to visit her. He looked shocked and told me to please send my daughter inside. I did. He proceeded to tell me that Mrs. Rosa had lived there. She had lost her husband and only son 4 years before. This drove me to instantly tell him I'd check on her and make sure she was okay. He looked at me and smiled kind of strange. He then said, "Melissa, Mrs. Rosa passed away 3 years ago. They believe she died of a broken heart." I went weak in the knees. It all made sense now. He said Mrs. Rosa's brother was in another country and paid the rent every month. He had asked the landlord to leave everything as it is until he could get there. I was shocked, but what could I do? Not long after that, my marriage started to have bad times and my daughter fell very ill. My daughter and I moved back in with my parents, and my ex-husband moved somewhere else. We have driven by the old duplex over the years, and there still sits in the driveway to this day Mrs. Rosa's old dusty Toyota Corolla, and always a for rent sign in the unit we stayed in for less than 3 months. A good friend of mine, Cassie, from Oracles and Beyond, shared this story with me. This is truly terrifying. It was a summer day of my 9th year. Mom had planned a weekend getaway. It was a couple hours drive to the country. I don't remember all the details, but I do remember this weekend changed our lives forever. It was Mom, Dad, my 2 brothers, older sister, and I. Joining us would be my uncle and aunt and 2 young cousins. My mom and uncle were close, so we always did things together. Mom had told us we would be staying in a cabin for the weekend. Sounded nice to get away from the city, and going somewhere new was exciting for us kids. I remember finally pulling up to what seemed like a scene from a horror movie. The cabin was old and wooden, and surrounded by nothing but dead, dark trees. As we all got out of the car, I think we were all thinking the same thing. So I said it first. "This place gives me the chills." My aunt agreed with me. I was suddenly glued to my mom's side. As my dad unlocked the cabin, we all slowly made our way in. We were suddenly hit with the smell of moldy wood. The cabin was so dark and cold, I wanted to go home. First, we entered the living room. It was furnished with an old green sofa and an orange, musty-looking chair. The floors were made of hardwood and would squeak with every step we took. The next room was the kitchen. What stood out the most was the vintage cook stove. It was pea green and looked like it had not been used in years. We suddenly heard my dad yell in excitement, so we all ran to the bedroom to see what he found. The bedroom was bland and bare, containing a brass bed and a white, beautiful dresser with a mirror. Hanging from the roof was a cord that Dad pulled, and down slid a ladder. It was an attic. That was a big no for me, but Dad was going up. All I could see was darkness, and fear hit me in the face. That darkness wasn't the only thing waiting up there. As the men went to investigate the attic, the rest of us went to the living room to sit down. We tried to have a bit of fun and relax despite being spooked. As we sat around, a dark shadow passed by the window, making us all jump. Mom quickly locked the doors and peeked out the window, seeing no one there. After finally calming us kids down, my dad and uncle walked in the room. Dad was carrying an old baby basket. It was made of wicker, and inside was a thin mattress. I got a very cold feeling. Even being so young, something told me taking it from the attic was a bad idea. My aunt seemed excited about it. She dusted it off and laid my baby cousin in it. We all sat around the living room and started to feel like we were finally having a peaceful trip. What happened next terrified us all. The baby basket slid across the floor with the baby in it. I think we all froze in time, shocked by what we just saw. I remember finally feeling relieved when we were out of the cabin. I felt safe again and relieved we didn't have to spend the night there. We made it home with a story to tell and an experience we will always remember. About 2 weeks after our trip, something horrible affected our family and left us with grief and question. My aunt had woke up to find my baby cousin had passed. Honestly, not sure if it was related, but my mother blamed herself to the day she passed away, a year later. This is the story of Dana Mack and her experience when she moved into a not-so-peaceful apartment. Back in 2012, we had just moved in with our roommates to a 2-bedroom apartment. Everything was great at first. Nothing really odd happened. My mom and brother came to visit one day, and I overslept, as did my roommate. I woke up and jumped out of bed, remembering my mom and brother were supposed to be coming here. I opened the front door, and my mom and brother walked up. My mom was upset with me, asking me why we kept walking up to the door and laughing. I said, "Mom, we just got up. We never went to the door." She said, "Yes, you did. We heard you walk up. You leaned on the door, and I heard you both laughing." I said, "No, Mom, I swear, I'd never do that." Well, shortly after we moved in, our cat started acting weird. We had her for many years, and she was always shy and calm and sweet. But since we moved to that apartment, she changed and would snap at us for no reason. We had to get her a new home. I was heartbroken, but it was for the best. One night after being out, our friends walked up to us in the driveway and asked if we had just got home. Me being sarcastic, I say, "No, we were just moving the cars around." She says, "No, I was at your door and I saw you and your roommate. You walked up to the door and leaned on it and whispered and started laughing." We froze. We had not told anybody what had happened when my mom and brother visited, and how our friend says the same thing that my mom said happened to her. So I started paying attention and noticed everyone was acting off. They went from happy to not so happy, just not as close as we were before. You could feel something, watching and waiting. So speed up to 2013, my roommates moved out, and it was just me there. I had my new place with my family, but I worked from home and had been waiting for internet to be moved to the new place, so I stayed at my old apartment to work. I'm up early working, and it's dark in our apartment. The only thing left in my apartment was my desk and bed. I felt a chill down my spine, as if someone was standing in the doorway watching. I'm too scared to turn around because I could feel something there. I quickly jump up and shut the door. After that, I hear what sounds like something in the living room going through boxes. We had no boxes out there, and it was totally empty. I just ignored it and went on working. A few days later, I'm there alone, and I get out of the shower and hear the pantry door in the kitchen slam shut. I jump a mile and say hello and call my husband's name. No one answers, so I go to walk out, and it slams again and again. I look, and no one was there. At that point, shaking, I call my husband. He comes and looks around and finds nothing or nobody there. The next day, I'm working, and I hear walking and things shuffling around and doors moving. I say, "Screw this, I am done. I can't do this anymore. Get me out of here. I don't care if I have to work a couple of days without the internet." When I finally left, it was like I could breathe again. The air was not so thick. I don't know what was there, but it was dark and messed up my friendship. We lost our cat, and it changed my mind on the paranormal. I would feel like whatever it was meant to cause harm. I was thankful to get out of there safe with my family, but it will forever haunt my mind.